Please remain seated. The show will begin in 3, 2...
Like a Hellcat.
Hi, I'm FandomTraveller87.
Wanna hear a ghost story?
Located on 8th Avenue, right near the neck of the woods by Marigold's farm, was Tom Foley's house. It stood 2 stories high. Some of the birchwood on the exterior of the house was withering away. There was also a couple broken windows and busted shutters, and also a rusty old gate right at the center of the driveway. There was locks, heavy chains, and a huge fence wrapped around with chicken wire, as though to keep unwanted visitors out. Sam and Betsy parked their bikes, leaning them up against a tree, and Calypso was huddled up close to Betsy, trembling like a leaf. Betsy, Sam stuttered, his voice shaky. His body was becoming very limp, cold and clammy, sweat profusely dripping and soaking his white t-shirt. I don't think that this is a good idea. Maybe we should turn back. After all, this guy could shoot us first and then ask questions later. This is a really, really bad idea, and I don't like it. Something about that place is off to me. Betsy Ann sighed, rolling her eyes, shaking her head, then crossing her arms as she turns to face him. Sam, I don't blame you for being a bit scared. I'm a little nervous too. But we can't afford to make any mistakes. We can't afford any delays. And we certainly can't just run into fire if we're not prepared well enough. We need all the resources and information that we can get from anybody. And if there's anyone who can provide us with more insight about Mr. Kingswood's murder, it's Tom Foley, because he was there. He was the only witness who came at the house and discovered the body first. There's got to be more that he knows, that he probably didn't even share with the police. Then suddenly there was a gunshot. Then there was a sound of leaves crunching and an old man shouting just a little ways ahead of them on the path.
What the hell are you filthy miscreants doing on my property? Get out of here before I blow you two sky high.
Tom Foley had locked and reloaded his shotgun, not daring to lower it, as he inched closer to the children, his eyes giving off this icy cold glare, baring his teeth, as his jaw is a bit clenched with fury. Sam was already hiding behind Betsy, but Betsy Ann, putting on a brave face, had pulled away from Sam while her dog Calypso was cowering at Sam's feet. Betsy Ann then took a few steps forward, waving back at the old man, casually and calmly as ever. "Hi, Mr. Foley. My name is Betsy Ann Kramer. I am Tallulah's granddaughter, and we're also a friend of Mrs. Kinley. She's the one who sent us here. We were wondering if we could ask you some questions, if you don't mind. Mr. Foley tilted his head to the side as he halted abruptly. He examined the children, his gaze seemingly suspicious of the two.
Seriously? Ugh. Barbara Janet McKinley sent you two imp-faced hooligans to my house? Ugh. Of course, I probably should have realized that this would come sooner or later. Alright, I'll enlighten you brats. What sort of questions did she think that I would hope to answer to the two of you? And this better not be a waste of my time.
Well, we were wondering if you could tell us a bit more about the night of October 31st, 1950, when you first discovered Mr. Kingswood's body hanging in the attic? Betsy Ann stammered out. Tom Foley's heart leaped into his chest, and he jolted back, his eyes widening in horror.
Excuse me, young lady? What did you just say?
The murder of Mr. Kingswood, his alleged suicide? Betsy Ann said flatly, in a slightly sassy sort of tone of voice. Listen, Mr. Foley, we didn't come all this way for nothing. We know that you know more than what you're leading on. And we know that your statement that you gave to the police wasn't taken seriously. After all, somebody, especially the department, had to cover up the murder to make it look like that Mr. Kingswood hung himself. Now, we both know what you saw. We all know exactly what you saw in that attic. Now, you might as well just tell us the truth. Mrs. Kinley had informed us of some stuff that indicated that he was killed before he was hung. Now, that is what you told the police, right? You did show them what you found on the body, correct?
So what? It's been nearly 50 years. Why does any of it matter now? People nowadays, they just duck, dodge, and hide whenever they accidentally stumble across that old hellhole. And yes, that's true. The police were easily bought because they were funded by the generous contributions of the Kingswood family back then. So they could be silenced, and it was a win-win for everyone. They'd get whatever they desired. I was forced to redact my statement that this man was already dead before he was hung. I knew that I wasn't taken seriously, but I knew that I couldn't fight it because I had other things that I had worked so hard to build for in my life that I didn't want the Kingswood family trying to sabotage me like they did the others.
Eventually, the children, along with Calypso, were welcomed inside of Tom Foley's house, and they all sat down in the living room while Tom Foley was rocking around in his rocking chair, taking a moment to compose himself before continuing. The 80-year-old man, with tiresome eyes, rubbed his temples, then responding with,
I was 30 years old, a struggling, very depressed man who had a bit of a gambling and drinking addiction that cost me everything that I held dear. It also put me through a very messy divorce, and I was hopping from town to town, city to city, trying to find stable work with consistent wage. And then I had seen an ad in the paper an interior designer was looking for someone to be a part of their construction team to build the Kingswood house. And so I made a phone call to Tallulah, I believe her name was, and she forwarded me to speak with Mrs. Kingswood, Felicia, who was lady of the house. We had gone to talking and we hit things off rather quickly, and then I started working. I was a bit of a handyman most of the time. I installed their kitchen appliances. I also did some custodial work, cleaning up messes whenever needed. I did all that I was asked. Didn't really ask questions back. I just kept to myself, kept my head down, and just did all that I was told because I desperately needed the money and room and board. So I didn't think too much of anything. I just ignored all that I possibly could because I just didn't want to be involved. Then came that one time where all of it began. July 4th, 1949, the barbecue. Mrs. Kingswood was going to be throwing a really big party for her and the neighbors, pretty much for everyone who was invited, including myself and the other staff members who have worked very hard over the course of several months putting this house together. So it was a bit of a late housewarming party. It was going on later than anticipated. Well, I was outside, setting up chairs and tables, laying out food and plenty of drinks, alcoholic beverages, and of course there would be children attending. And so Mrs. Kingswood had raised enough money to provide some sort of amusement rides in the back of the property, just a Ferris wheel and stuff like that. Just something small. Seeing as back then there weren't very many children living in this town. So, with that being said, everything was going rather smoothly until I heard glass shattering and shouting coming from upstairs in the Kingswood house. It was Mrs. Kingswood arguing with her husband over finances, and then they were going off swearing at each other, and furniture was flying, and there was just so much racket that it startled everyone else. But I was the only one who was bold enough to go inside and see what was going on. I had confronted the two who were in their master bedroom, but I didn't get very far because Mrs. Kingswood had just stormed out of the master bedroom and was heading towards my direction, but she stopped when she saw me. She looked horrified. Her face was just soaked with tears, and her husband was fuming, but when he looked into my eyes, it definitely scared me to bits because the way that he looked at me was a way that a tiger would look at its prey as though it was just itching to scratch me to bits and tear off my flesh, ready to pounce and devour me whole. That's exactly what that man looked like to me. He was completely out of control. He was unstable, and this poor woman was scared for her life. Then I could hear her baby boy crying in the nursery. She had begged me to go get him and to take him outside where he would be safe. I obliged, but I was hesitant at first because Mr. Kingswood's eyes just followed me. I think that he felt as though I was a threat, that I was an obstacle between the two of them, because Felicia saw me as a safety net. She saw me as someone that she could really trust. I took her infant son Angus and brought him outside, giving him to Tallulah before rushing back inside of the house, and upstairs I went. Mr. Kingswood was staggering around, his head flopping all over the place, as though he could barely stand. And Felicia, she was. She was.
What, Mr. Foley? What happened next? Asked Sam.
I should have done more. I should have kept them both safe, but I didn't. And I hate myself for it. Why? Just why? I never did see or hear from her again after that. And the last thing I heard is that from her husband was that she had moved away, took their son with them to go live with a relative in New York. But I never bought that. I never believed it, not for a second. I know he did something to both of them, her and their son, their only child. God, why? Just why did this have to happen now?
Tom Foley paused for a moment, taking a sip from his glass of whiskey.
I never did leave her side. I stayed with her because I didn't want her to be alone with that man. I know that he had something to do with her getting injured, and I just didn't feel right about her being by herself with him. And the neighbors just stopped coming to visit altogether, as well as Tallulah, but only within the exception of the rare occasion of her coming by to give Mrs. Kingswood back her son Angus. But Tallulah never returned to the house after that. I stayed because I deeply cared for her. I remember holding her hand, and that would be the last time, because what she said to me is something that to this day still brings me great sadness.
No matter what happens to me, Tom, please take good care of my baby. Please take good care of him.
After giving her pain medication and laying there beside her, still holding her hand, I had dozed off, and then very next morning I had awoken, and she had asked me to go to the market and get her some soup. I did as I was told, but I was still afraid to leave her. But she assured me that everything was going to be okay. So I left, and about an hour later, I returned to the house, and Felicio, she was gone. He was working rather late, up until 1 o'clock in the morning, that when he had gotten home, but he decided to sleep on the couch downstairs in the living room. I didn't believe him because I just knew that he had something to do with this, but I couldn't prove anything. I even tried getting the police involved, and there was a huge interrogation for weeks. A huge search party went out to see if they could find Felicia anywhere, but to no avail. They never did find her. But I never gave up. I still looked for her. I still hoped that she would turn up somehow. I could never make peace with this situation. Ever since the anniversary of Mr. Kingswood's death, things had just gotten worse in this town. Children disappearing whenever they go near the woods, whenever they go anywhere near that old house. And it seems like whenever something attaches itself to you, it just follows you and then it contaminates some other person's property. Like marigolds. God, I would hope and pray that no other person has fallen victim to another attack.
Betsy Ann was actually attacked by Farmer Marigold's scarecrow last summer, said Sam, in hesitation. She and I both technically have a gift, a sixth sense, if you will, which is why it's possible that she and I both have attachments to that old place because, well, we were there. We both were. We both saw and heard things that we wish that we didn't, and we deeply regret it. But without us,
You're joking me. You got to be joking. Seriously, kids, even after all that I explained, you two still want to even go back to that old house? And you want me to come along and risk my neck helping you too? Have you lost your minds?
listen, we know that it's risky. We understand that. We know what's at stake. But we have to put an end to all this. If we can set those spirits free that are trapped there.
Ugh, fine, fine. If it'll get you two to stop bothering me. Just shut up for a second, let me think. Okay, I will help you. But so help me God. If I die in that place, I swear to the heavens, I will come back and haunt the two of you till the day that you die. I will make your lives absolutely miserable. Have I made myself clear?
Yes, sir, Sam shouted, loud and clear. Weeks pass. It is now October 10th. It is the early evening. Sam had quickly arrived on his bike. He parked it right by a flat rock, and as he had gone on Betsy Ann's grandmother's front lawn, he approached Betsy Ann's treehouse that was 5 stories high. He was carrying his backpack full of snacks and drinks, card games, and stuff to do to kill time while they were waiting patiently for further updates from Tom Foley. He had also brought another bag full of paranormal equipment, such as his special camera to take photographs, an electric voice phenomenon recorder, or a spirit box, as others call it. He also brought night vision goggles. He also brought flashlights, amongst other things. Betsy Ann was wearing a pair of binoculars around her neck. Okay, Sam, said Betsy Ann sternly. Did you bring all the supplies that I asked for? She was looking for confirmation. Sam quickly nodded. Oh, yes, of course. See, I brought all the materials here. Good, said Betsy Ann. Now listen, I'm waiting on further instruction from Tom Foley. He's currently surveillancing the land behind the Kingswood house. He is trying to pick up some hot spots, Do you think that Tom will pick up anything residual or intelligent? I don't know if you're familiar with the difference between the two, but... Oh, of course I do, Sam, she exclaimed. Residual hauntings refer to small fragments of things that had occurred in the past that serve as some sort of reenactment of something that occurred in a certain event, like a door slamming, or a baby crying, or footsteps in the hall. Stuff like that. Intelligent hauntings are more immediate, more distinctively clearly heard on a voice box in response to a question that, of course, hence the name intelligent haunting. Because a spirit can choose to respond to a question either with yes or no, but it has to be something clear and distinctive, something audible, even if it is slightly muffled or distorted. That's what makes it an intelligent haunting, is because when a ghost responds to a question almost immediately with a clear-cut response, that's intelligent. Sam, Betsy Ann added, I'm actually quite surprised that you even decided to come. After all, doesn't your mother know that you're here? Wouldn't she be unhappy that we're hanging out together anyway? Oh, about that, said Sam, quite actually giddy. She's gonna be out of town for the next couple weeks, attending some seminar for like a nurses convention. Honestly, I'm quite relieved. She won't be spoiling my Halloween, that's for certain. Anyway, said Sam, status report. Does Tom Foley have anything to share with us right now? Hold on, let me get him on my walkie-talkie. Tom Foley, come in, Tom Foley. It's Betsy Ann. Are you there? Tom Foley, can you read me?
Yeah, okay, what's up? No, I haven't gotten anything yet. At least I don't think.
Oh, come on, Mr. Foley, please, tell us, said Betsy Ann patiently.
Alright, well, there's a lot of tombstones that go on for 35 acres. And, of course, there's that forest over there. Now, I might have heard something coming from the house. It could have just been my imagination. Although I'm pretty sure that I just saw a shadow of something run past me.
Whoa. Did you get a good look at it? Asked Sam.
I don't know, maybe a woman, 5'6", hair at shoulder length, wearing a torn blue cocktail dress that sort of looked like like
Like Felicia Kingswood, said Sam. I think you just found her ghost.
oh my god, you're right. I need to see if I can find her again. I'll talk to you kids later.
No, Mr. Foley, you can't just... Then communication was lost. Oh no, we can't let him enter that house by himself. We need to do something, Sam. We need to go over there right now. Now? Are you serious? Maybe he'll be fine. Maybe there's nothing to worry about. Sam, Mr. Foley is 80 years old. He probably doesn't remember, like, what he had for breakfast yesterday. His memory's probably going really bad. I'm sure there's a lot that he wouldn't even remember. I'm sure he wouldn't be familiar with the interior of that place. He wouldn't know top from bottom, probably. He could get lost. He could get seriously injured or worse. We need to do something. We need to act fast. Sam sighed in defeat, and he reluctantly agreed, groaning in absolute misery. Here we go again, he muttered. So, they rushed to their bikes, and with Calypso behind them, they raced all the way to the direction of the Kingswood house, armed with flashlights, the camera, the night vision goggles, and all the other supplies that they needed to continue on with an investigation. And they still hope that Tom Foley is still alive when they get there. Okay, guys, this concludes part 7 of my original horror story, The Shadow Lady of the Kingswood House. Please stay tuned for the next part in the story. Please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for all future juicy content. I appreciate your support. Until next time, bye-bye.